Well, thank you very much for staying, and I'm getting some very positive comments in the studio this morning. I'd like to thank my director, Yao Forsin, for making that possible with the background. Anyway, joining us for the news review this morning, we have our two guests, both of them academics at the University of Ghana. The first, Dr. Kwame Asante. He is a political scientist and also head of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. The second, Dr. Jabir Mohammed. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Gentlemen, I'm watching. Dr. Mohammed, Sanazua. Okay, so I'll get to Dr. Mohammed in a bit, but I have Dr. Asante with me. Doc, so here we are. Yes, it's another day. I don't know whether you would want to use your 1 or 2 minutes to take a stab at the budget, because eventually we'll get into that. But what's on your mind this morning, Doc?
Yes, I think my comment will come from what I have gleaned from the budget. And it's about government effort to, as it were, roll out serious agri projects that will create jobs and also give us food and the rest of them. Beautiful idea. But I was surprised. I did not read much or anything about irrigation that needs to be done in the north, and specifically making or letting our dream of Pualugu Dam coming true. Nothing was said about it. About $12 million have been sunk into that project, and up to date, there is nothing to show for. I urge the government to go after those who have taken that money, and then we use it to develop that project, because it's one of the best that should happen in the area of agriculture, and then the Akosombo Dam. If you look at that project, it is meant to ensure irrigation of the north to boost agriculture. Then, apart from that, it's also to support the Akosombo Dam, that anytime Bagri water is spilled and we have that dam in place, it's going to take some volume of water and reduce the pressure and the effect on Akosombo Dam. So it's a two-way traffic, which is so important that it saves the Akosombo Dam, it creates irrigation for us, and of course, by extension, we are able to get agriculture, which is the focus of this government. So I will urge the government, go after those people who have taken that money, and then also put in a lot of resources to get the dam built, and then let's use it to develop agriculture in the north and then support Akosombo Dam.
Well, thank you for your thoughts. Let's get into the papers now. Presently, we'll be joined by Dr. Mohammed, and then we'll get his take as well. Oh, Dr. Jabir Mohammed is here with me. Doc, I said Sanazua earlier. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. What about you?
I am well, by God's grace. I know there's a lot you would have to unpack when it comes to the budget, but I would ask that you reserve that for when we start with the newspapers. But is there anything, a burning issue you'd like to share with us this morning before we delve into the papers?
Well, every day I keep preaching about street lighting in Ghana, and I maintain that it is very important that we keep our street lights properly on, because that is usually an accident, accident trap zones. So I believe that we have to work very hard to keep our street lights on. We need to ensure that the streets are very, 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 very light, so that when you are driving in the night, you can properly drive without any challenge. So I employ the authorities, the National Road Safety Commission, the road minister, the regional ministers. Everybody should try as much as possible to keep our street light on all the time.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts, gentlemen. Let's make tracks. Let's get right into the papers. The Ghanaian Times newspaper this morning, Budget 2025, government to spend 291 billion Ghana cedis to build a more resilient and equitable society. That's according to Dr. Kasilatu Forson, the finance minister. Budget not inspirational. That's according to the minority, but majority says it will stabilize the economy. Highlights overall real GDP growth of at least 4.0%. Non-oil real GDP growth of at least 4.8%, end period inflation rate of 11.9%, primary balance on commitment basis at a surplus of 1.5% of GDP, and gross international reserves, including oil funds and encumbered or pledged assets, to cover not less than 3 months of imports. And those are the projections. Now, 5 taxes scrapped to cushion businesses and the citizenry. That story on page 13 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. On the back page, teenage pregnancy, female genital mutilation remain serious issues in Upper East region. That's Fawe, the female genital mutilation issue. And then accelerate growth of women entrepreneurs, GEA CEO says so. That's the CEO of the Ghana Enterprises Agency, calling for an acceleration of growth of women entrepreneurs. And hopefully, if things go well with the Women's Development Bank, as yesterday was mentioned that there would be funding for the commencement of those activities, who knows how that would impact this sector and women entrepreneurs. But teenage pregnancy, that's where I'm starting on the back page. Teenage pregnancy and some obnoxious cultural practices like female genital mutilation are still major issues affecting the growth and development of adolescent girls in some rural and poverty-stricken communities in the Upper East region. The Forum for African Women Educationalists, Ghana, an international non-governmental organization, has observed. Mr. Richard Amweni, National Coordinator for Fawe Ghana chapter, said the increasing rate of teenage pregnancy in some districts and municipalities in the region was, quote, highly lamentable and mind-boggling. So just to look at some of the statistics, right? Even before we get there, it mentions that the 5-year project launched in 2022 and scheduled to end next year seeks to support the realization of sexual and reproductive rights for adolescent girls and boys in Ghana, Mozambique, and Uganda. And the figures are stark. If you look at the Kassina-Nankana municipality, there was a significant reduction between 2021 and 2022, 68.47% and 65.3%, and then 59.49% and 57.95% recorded in 2023 and 2024. That is what the data says. And there's a lot more from the Builsa North area and Kassina-Nankana West, but it still remains a troubling issue, teenage pregnancy, and then what we call FGM, female genital mutilation. We used to call it female circumcision, and then it was given a stronger term because it's completely unacceptable. I want us to take a quick look at that before we get into the economy-related issues, gentlemen. And if you like, you can tie that to the bit about sanitary pads and the commitment made by the finance minister in respect of that. I'll start with you, Dr. Azaa Asante.
I think it's a laudable program. I will start with the sanitary pad issue.
Free sanitary
because
pads.
this is an issue that we have learned that it affects girls who have reached adolescent age, and it creates all manner of problems for them to the extent that some of them are not able to attend classes and the rest of them. So we need to support them to prevent all manner of health problems that when they are not able to dress properly, it can affect them. I support that call, and I believe that government must make sure that the support that they give, they will continue to maintain that, and that will also boost, girls' education, and then put them in classroom as opposed to having them on the streets of the country. The second issue about FGM and then pregnancy, teenage pregnancy. I thought that we had dealt with FGM because there was strong advocacy against that. And then I don't know whether even there's a law that prescribes that. So it's surprising to me to hear this morning that we continue to have such practice in this country. I think all that we need is what law enforcement in this area, and ensure that whoever breaches any rule regarding this is properly brought to book. The issue about teenage pregnancy is another big one, because it has caused this country and continue to cause this country a lot in terms of so many things, health problems, and the fact that children are not able to continue their education. It leads to, broken homes and a host of other problems. So we have to begin from somewhere. First of all, with socialization, to inculcate into children the need to keep themselves up to the time that they become matured, and then they go into adult business. And then issue of schools taking up the socialization program and making sure that they become the eyes and the ears of family and society, that whoever want to be funny with those girls, those people are dealt with. And above all, we as a society, we must also step our game and ensure that when we see something, we say something. More often than not, you see that issues of this nature, when it occurs, they are swept under the carpet.
Right.
People don't want to report and all that. We should strengthen people to report such cases to the rightful authorities, and we urge DOPSU to be active, more active in this area, because over the years they have done so well. We want them to look at these things and deal with them head on.
Dr. Mohammed, I will always highlight these issues because women's issues are a great concern to me, and I believe in many ways they've suffered more than enough. And so that is why I would highlight the free sanitary pad situation and this story as well. Any quick thoughts on still the prevalence of teenage pregnancy and female genital mutilation, especially in the northern belt of the country? Any quick thoughts?
Well, the northern region has been a critical area in which most of these things happen, especially the Katsina-Nankana district, as you mentioned earlier. This is not the first time I've heard of this before. And I believe that, government will have to come out with programs to support girls. And one of the critical one of the critical things that government is doing in recent times has to do with the National Apprenticeship Program. And even the Israel administration had in place some other covered, some other technical training programs for women, like the sewing and all of that. So I believe that if we are able to put this into practice, more girls will be put, if they're active and they get something doing, I don't think that they will get engaged with men that would eventually lead to the pregnancy.
Right.
And also, I do believe that education is very important. So we have to intensify the education, especially the teachers who teaches them must intensify that. Parents must intensify education. Religious bodies must intensify education. NGOs must intensify education. If all of them are able to do that, I do hope that we'll be able to keep the situation. And for the issue of the sanitary pass, it's been a very troubling moment for most women, especially in recent times. Sanitary pass are very expensive.
Right.
So if the government is saying that they want to come out to support women in terms of sanitary pads, I think that it's a step in the right direction. It's a very, very, very good social program that can help to ameliorate the challenges that women face, especially when it comes to protecting their menses and other things. Especially, it's also going to help to support health. It's going to reduce the infections. It's going to reduce the enrollment in the health centers and all of that. So I think that these are very good things. And the female genital mutilation, this is something that practice that has existed for a very long time. It's a cultural issue that I think that we have to begin to know that it poses a lot of health problems. So we need to also educate the people, in as much as it's a culture, do as much as possible to eliminate it so that we can stop the challenges that we face when it comes to those kind of social problems.
All right. Gentlemen, let's quickly get into the budget statement. And of course, you would see in front of the Ghanaian Times newspaper the banner headline, government to spend 291 billion to build more resilient, equitable society. And Dr. Kasila Forson hoisting, that has become a tradition now, right? Hoisting his, what do you call it, a briefcase. And he said it was from Horseman and that we should buy made in Ghana. So what does the story say? I'll read two because the minority says the budget is not inspirational. The minority caucus in Parliament says the budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending December 31, 2025 is empty and does not inspire confidence in the administration to address the economic challenges of the country. And that was Alexander Afenyo-Markin, the minority leader. He called it another chapter of lamentations on the back of the SONA, and that it was an Azaa budget or a fraudulent budget. But this is what the finance minister says. The government has projected to spend 291 billion Ghana cedis in the 2025 fiscal year to implement the budget and fund infrastructural projects. The finance minister, Dr. Kasila Forson, who asked Parliament for approval for the government to spend the amount when he presented the 2025 budget statement and economic policy to the House, said the money would be used to finance the budget and government initiatives. He said the government was estimated to raise a total revenue and grants of 223.8 billion Ghana cedis, representing 17.2% of gross domestic product, up from 186.5 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. And you would also look at these projections and ask yourself whether they are realistic, because that is what we would always do to find out whether they are realistic so that we can meet them and then also, if possible, exceed them. He said the residual net domestic financing will amount to 36.9 billion cedis. And of course, there is the issue of 5 taxes getting scrapped as well. So they are the 10% withholding tax on winnings from lottery, known as betting tax. And I've heard Dr. Gideon Boako and others try to expatiate on this matter. The 1% electronic transfer levy, the emission levy on industries and vehicles, value-added tax on motor vehicle insurance policy. And of course, there's also the withholding tax on winning of unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. Dr. Mohammed, for you, listening to this, what were your thoughts? Did it give you hope?
Yes, I think the budget inspired some level of confidence in the system. This is not an ambitious budget. This is not overestimated. This is a budget that is within the means of the good people of Ghana. And I think that it is a path to rebalancing the economy and making the economy much more resilient and sound. So Forson did a good job. And I think that if it is properly implemented, the transformation we want to see, we'll begin to see that in no too distant future. I think that I know you talk about taxes and all of that, and some taxes were scrapped. You know, he did a very intelligent scrapping of the taxes. He cut one part and scrapped the other part just to make businesses more comfortable. If you have a certain amount of money lying somewhere in fallow, and you believe that you can go to that land and fetch something and cancel other ones that seem to be obnoxious to businesses and also to individuals, it is better to do that. One important thing I'm very much happy about is the electronic transaction levy, because that one stops financial inclusion, and it affects businesses, it affects individuals who want to be included in the financial system. So if that tax that has been scrapped is a very, 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 very important tax, and I think that is going a long way to help to foster financial inclusion and make Ghanaians feel better.
Let me just ask you very quickly, though. I mean, there's a plethora of issues to look at. I listened to Professor Bokpin yesterday. He said over the last number of years, the only budget that didn't sneak stuff on Ghanaians but met the general expectations was this budget. He said the budget responded to the past and built for the future, and he congratulated the president and the finance minister on that. Then there's the thorny issue. I'd like you to share your thoughts on this, the betting tax. So Dr. Amin Adam, Dr. Gideon Boako have come out to say it was never deducted, it was never implemented. What I found curious about that was, I remember sometime last year, I was at my barber shop, right? And there's a gentleman who comes in sometimes. He comes for a haircut. And he was actually lamenting that he had just got winnings. And once he tried retrieving and all of that, that indeed, I think it was about 3,000 something or 4,000 CDs. And 10% had been taken. So when I heard that from Dr. Amin Adam, unless this gentleman was fibbing, lying at the time, I found it a little interesting. But then his explanation also seemed to make some sense. Then I listened to Dr. Kasilato Forsen, who also made mention of the fact that no, Dr. Amin Adam was not on top of issues and that about 80 million Ghana cedis had actually been taken as betting tax. What's your quick reaction to these issues before I go to Dr. Azaa Asante?
Yeah, all of this is about an issue of data. The reconciliation of the data between what the previous administration says and what the current administration is saying. And they are holding the public purse now. And they know all the channels of the resources that came in recent times. So if he says that 80 million has been realized from betting tax, who are we to say that the data he's presenting is not accurate? If Amin Anta has his own data, he should usually present it and say that, well, as the finance minister before I left office, these were the figures. But you don't say that nothing was realized out of it when it is reported that 80 million was realized out of it. So it is something about data that they have to reconcile. If they are able to do so, I think that we'll get out of this particular problem. Do you remember that even in the past administration, they keep doing a lot of comparative analysis that did not even order well. Sometimes even as at fifth year of the administration, fifth year, seventh year, even eighth year, they were still comparing figures with 2016, which to me, this budget did not present that. It went straight and simple to the point. It was very clear, unambiguous. There was nothing like a lot of comparative analysis that do not really order well. They could have even compared the debt figures, they could have compared the inflation figures, they could have compared exchange rate figures, they could have compared so many things, but they chose a different path. And I think that the sanity of the presentation, let us maintain the sanity of the presentation,
Right.
and debate the substance of the issue and stop doing politics about things that is not political.
Let me come to you, Dr. Azaa Asante. Another thing I found interesting, and of course on social media, we would have to follow these issues. I saw a picture of Dennis Miracles Abuaje, who had headed the campaign for Dr. Bawumia, with a placard that said, no betting tax. And of course, then you ask the question, if the promise was being made by the previous administration that if Dr. Bawumia won the election, there would be no betting tax, what were they going to cancel? Anyway, your thoughts on some of these matters, Dr. Kwame Azaa Asante.
Yeah,
please unmute.
I think
yes, I can hear you now.
I was also surprised to hear that because I have something with me here. I just pick it from online, Gaming Africa. It said, Dr. Bawumia, I will abolish betting tax,
Indeed.
VAT on electricity.
Exactly.
So if the thing did not exist, what were you going to abolish? It did exist, and except that they are being disingenuous relative to the issue we are discussing. Yes. So I don't see the point here. In governance, you proceed with integrity and in truth so that we follow you and believe in what you are saying. I believe that my position has always been, as a political scientist, that relative to state capacity, one of the things we look out here when we are dealing with state capacity is the ability for the state to raise revenue to run its own affairs. When you have a challenge here, then you go globetrotting with a cap in hand looking for financial resources. So issue about tax, I have always been on the side of it, supporting taxation. But my problem has always been the incidence of taxation, that we always want to see that the burden will not be too much for the ordinary person to bear. But if the government believes that this is the way forward to it, fine. But my question also relative to taxation is that we take a lot of taxes, but one challenge we have is the use of the taxation. We want to urge this government to put these taxes into effective use.
Right.
Because if you read the budget, they talk about the fact that the previous government abused some of these things. We want a paradigm shift in this regard so that taxation will be realized and used for the purpose for which we take them. Issue of the budget not inspirational, or inspiring. It's another important point worth considering. I found it, I'm not an economist, but there are things that resonate with me. And for that matter, I believe it also resonates with Ghanaians. If you look at the issue that you want to focus on agriculture, I will say hooray to it. But what I want is that the government should walk the talk and then spell out certain specifics. Where are we going to get land, farm inputs, and the rest of them? It shouldn't be just we are going into agriculture, because you and I know issue about land for agriculture is a problem. Issue of land tenure system and the problems it creates. Issue of even harvest, post-harvest losses. How are we going to deal with that?
Right.
And then markets. All right. Are we going to have market for what we produce and all that? You encourage people to produce. At the end of the day, there's no market for them. So I expect them to do something in this regard.
Right.
And then the finance minister showcasing made in Ghana back. And also, if you extend it to the budget, they are saying that they want to encourage the consumption of made in Ghana goods. This we have heard time and again. And this time around, we want to see a change in that type of conversation. The narrative should change. And we should begin by patronizing what we produce, rice.
Right.
We should reduce the import of rice that we bring into this country. In recent time, I've learned that we spend about $8 million a year to import onion from Burkina Faso and the rest of them. All these things must cease. Right. And then we should be able to patronize what we produce. And that is the way to go.
All right. Gentlemen, we have to accelerate, and I'll need more bite-sized reactions from all of us, including me. But we must all sacrifice to build nation. That's the finance minister. And then 8 vehicles, tanker burnt at fuel station explosion in Techiman. And yesterday, around the Achimota area, there was this trailer, as we call them, which, overturned, creating a bit of traffic in the late hours of the evening. And then my stolen $95,000 jewelry was purchased over a period of 35 years, Cecilia Dapa says so. That's about $410,000 that she says was taken. I believe another 300,000 euros and some CDs, hundreds of thousands of CDs, and then jewelry and other things. And of course, she's in court over those issues. I'll just quickly get into some other stories or headlines, and then you can add your reactions to those. The Ghanaian publisher, Mahama's Azaa Budget offers no hope. Afenyo-Markin cries for the youth, and $279 million gold bought fund. Another creates loot and share. Dr. Amin Adam, the former finance minister, says so. He says another. Does that mean there were others before that? Ken Ashigbe slams government's Galamsey fight. Let me quickly do that story. Now, Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, convener of the Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining, has raised serious concerns about the government's approach to tackling illegal mining, commonly known as Galamsey. Despite various interventions, he insists that the problem remains critical and requires more decisive action, particularly from President John Dramani Mahama. Speaking on Joy News on Monday, Dr. Ashigbe highlighted the alarming degradation of Ghana's forest reserves. He revealed that 9 reserves had been declared no-go areas due to illegal mining activities, and while 2 in the Ashanti region had been reclaimed, efforts to combat the menace are being undermined. He pointed out that security task forces deployed to fight Galamsey are often outnumbered and outgunned by illegal miners. He criticized the delay in government action, specifically questioning the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources in action. But we've also heard the bit about LI 2462 being repealed. I'll start with you, Dr. Hassan Asante. I want to start with you on this matter briefly, and then I'll go to Dr. Mohammed.
I will start with Galamsey, and my position has not changed. We should sustain the effort and then fight on. It appears to be a daunting task, but I know it is within the reach of government. Because if it's issue about security, I can dove my hat for the Ghana Armed Forces. When given the opportunity, they will get those people out, and then we'll ensure sanity in that
Doc,
area.
there have been times where even the military has been outgunned and outnumbered in these instances.
Yeah, but are we saying that if that is the case, the military cannot go in there again with another strategy to overcome them? I trust the Ghana Armed Forces. Let's take our hands off them and give them what they require to do the work, and we'll come back and clap for them. I know that. But the government must also put it out, a house in order to be able to shepherd us through a certain pragmatic process that would lead toward the results that we want. As at now, I have not seen what is really on the ground that will give us the results. But I will not also, be quick to attack the government in that direction. I believe that they are putting things together, but the earlier they did it, the better, because we can't wait. The Galamsey menace is taking lives, destroying the ecosystem, and it's a threat to our survival. Look at the budget. When you read, there's a cocoa production has reduced by 50%, and part is placed, part of the blame is attributed to what? Galamsey activities and the rest of them. We know that. So it's something that we can't toy with. And against the threat that some of the heavy metals are finding expression in the cocoa pods and the beans, it must be a worrying something to us. The issue of the budget inspiring no hope. It's a talk that we know. Every time government present budget, the opposition will never praise any budget of this nature. But if you look at the things they want to concentrate on, I believe if they are able to do it, it's going to help us. One, by reducing government expenditure. We want that statement. Government, if you look at all the budgets, every government want to tell us that they are in to reduce expenditure. But what do we see at the end of the day? Bloated expenditure, waste, financial waste. The Auditor General report is there with a lot of figures that we see all the time. This time around, we want to make sure that we hold the government feet to the heat of accountability relative to what he's saying, and that we want to ensure that we have the best for our society. The good board issue that they are talking
please make
about,
that your final point, Doc. Yes,
I will make. It is a good project because if you look at the things that they want to do, for me, as an ordinary man, is going to stem the tide and create a certain enabling environments to be able to regulate the activities. I support the call that we should have that body that can, last I was listening to Sami Gemfi, and it's something that I've said before, that we should have a body that will say, look, you can only sell at this point. And when you do, the government can track where you got a license from, how you have managed the process to the extent that you've gone to the final stage, and then you are now selling. All these processes will be able to strengthen, and at the end of the day, we'll have the best.
Dr. Mohammed.
Well, the illegal mining is a very serious matter. And I think that we have to find a way to deal with it and deal with it very well. What I would suggest now is that government must stop all licensing of people who want to go into mining, especially small-scale mining. They have to put a stop to the licensing. And secondly, the gold board is a very important area. So what you need to do is that just set out the board as early as possible. Put in all the regulations, even in as much as before you even go to Minerals Commission to take a license, you need to come up with a proper plan, all the business plan, your sustainability issues, your land recovery, and all of that. So the gold board will approve these particular processes. Then after that, you go for the licensing from the Minerals Commission. Then they can allow you to go in a mine. So we need to put in pragmatic measures to be able to stop that, because it is not just affecting only the environment, but it's been affecting us financially, especially the cocoa and beans and all of that. It's reducing significantly. And that is a major source of income to us. It is destroying our water bodies, creating health problems and all of that. So we really need to tackle it and tackle it very well. If we are able to do so, I think that we'll resolve all the challenges. And for the budget, we have already spoken about it. Half of hope, there is hope in the budget because there is a paradigm shift in the way things are done. And I think that half opposition, they will always have something to say. They will always say that the budget is not good. Even if the NDC was also in opposition, they would have said that there is no hope in the budget.
Right.
But I think that the budget has gotten certain key elements, especially expenditure rationalization and so forth. And I think that this is a step in the right direction. And if we work very hard, we will transform the country we want to do. What I didn't see clearly in it was my 24-hour economy. But I think that they said they were going to present a separate paper on that. And also, there is going to be a sectorial presentation of the budget. It's going to be departed from the previous administration. So every sector will come in to make a presentation in Parliament of how they are going to utilize their resources. And I think that this is a very, very, very good thing that they are doing.
Right.
So that they know that this is what is allocated to you. If you don't handle it very well, then you will be exposed for not doing your work.
Right. Let me just walk you through the rest of the stories and take your quick reactions, and it's a wrap. The Daily Guide 2025 budget, government allocates 44.17 billion for key initiatives, scraps taxes, reintroduces road tolls, and some of the stories we've done, I'm not going back to them. So that's that. The overseer, let me see which one. So government to add 100,000 barrel refinery to Tor, that's the Tema oil refinery, as it moves to restore operations. And then the Accra Times, so it says, I'll focus on the affirmative action issues. Implement affirmative action law. Speaker Bagbin appeals to President Mahama. Don't forget the men in pursuit of affirmative action. That's the majority leader, Mahama Ayariga, and it's a call I support. Women's issues, there are men. All of us need to be on board. And if you exclude the men, it's a recipe for disaster. MP calls for more women in leadership and governance. That's Honorable Joanna Jan Kujo there. She's been speaking to the issues. Then, the Custodian newspaper, Ghana's GDP hits 5.7% under NPP. That's according to Dr. Gideon Boako. Sometimes I like how we like to bandy about GDP figures and fail to look at how they commensurate with the ordinary person and what happens in the economy, the cost of living, and how people feel in their pockets. We like doing that. NDC, MPP, GDP. Anyway, then there's also government seeks over 290 billion Ghana cedis for 2025. And Mahama government inherited 67.5 billion unpaid arrears. All of that, and this story is in the Daily Analyst newspaper. Gentlemen, you have a minute each, and then we can wrap it all up. I'll start with you, Dr. Azaa Asante.
Affirmative action, good project. Let's sustain that. It's good. It will help and bring everybody up to a level that we all expect. That also extends toward supporting the girl child education and the rest of them. But my question is that who takes care of the boy child today? Because it seems to me that all efforts towards promoting the girl child, right? That's good. But what about the boy child? If we don't put the two together side by side, we'll finish one and we'll begin to work on one for starters. I think that we must balance the act very well, and it will help us.
All right. Just a quick thought. There was also talk about free textbooks for students and then the first year tertiary level students or university students and the promise that was made. Do you have any reactions to that?
Yes, free textbook, good. But the students want to receive the books whilst they are in that class. We have history where people move to classes ahead of them, and the books that they were supposed to have used them will come later. I mean, look at this past government. They spend a lot of time developing curriculum about beautiful curriculum, which some of us took part in looking at it and all that. The government couldn't even, earmark money to purchase them and all that. So some of the books, they were not able to buy them, and they use them for the purpose for which they budget for. And this is not the best.
Okay.
Let us change the game and make sure that we strengthen. And I will urge those who would develop the curriculum that they should look at the changing circumstances of the world and then incorporate into our curriculum things that will make our students being able to rub shoulders with their counterparts all over the world.
All right. Dr. Mohammed, you have the final word. If you can make it less than a minute, I'd be grateful.
Okay, two issues. One, the TOR. I think that TOR is going back to work, and I believe that we are going to be able to refine a lot of oil, then we can resolve most of the problems that we face. The second thing is about the no-fee stress policy. I think that policy is a good policy, but I think that it should be targeted. It's not everybody who should benefit from that particular policy. Paying the fees of all tertiary students is not really a very progressive one. If you add that to the free senior high school, we are looking at close to more than 4 billion Ghana cedis just from there alone. So we need to realign that. After this year, we have to look at it and make some changes to it.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. You heard there Dr. Jabir Mohammed. He's a senior lecturer at University of Ghana Business School. We also had Dr. Kwame Asante, head of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana and a political scientist as well. Let's head into sports now, and we'll be right back with all the sporting action.